Hey friends, happy Tuesday. Hope you're hanging in there. Good to see you. I'm praying for you. Just want to remind you of that. Here's a question that you probably haven't been asked recently, if ever. What's your favorite tree? Do you have a favorite tree? Maybe a favorite one growing up that you did something in, favorite one right now? When I was real little, our first house we lived in, huge, awesome, one of those awesome trees in the backyard where I could totally climb it, sit on branches. Played in a ton. It was super cool, kind of like right out of the movies. Recently, well, we do have a dog now who will probably make an appearance in one of these videos. When I bring the dog to the dog park, there's this that's not too far from our house here in OB. Huge, beautiful tree, just one of those giant full ones, which is nice to see when you're trying to buy little skinny palm trees. And I actually took a big photo of it. It's now the lock screen on my phone because I love what trees communicate, what they're all about. And I was hoping to think of a good tree joke, because I'm trying to keep some humor in these, but I got stumped. So couldn't think of one. Sorry. Hey, I'm allowed to work like one dad joke in. The only other famous tree joke I know is let's make like a tree and leave. Or even better, Back to the Future. Thank you. Let's make like a tree and get out of here. Which makes no sense, but I like it. Anyway, trees. Here's what you may not know. Kind of fascinating that trees are actually all throughout the Bible. They actually play like this important role. I mean, all the way back at the very beginning, book of Genesis. It's all about trees. It talks about God created the tree of knowledge of good and evil, the tree of life, puts them in the center of the garden, and then the Bible ends with the idea of trees. Actually, in Revelation, a really cool picture of it. I'll talk about it in a minute. And trees are all the way in between. They show up in Daniel and some of his dreams, Ezekiel, some of his visions. You actually see trees in the Gospels. Jesus interacts with the trees. Zacchaeus is hiding up in a tree. So anyway, they're all the way through. Here's why I bring up trees today. I know it was flowers yesterday, trees today. I guess we'll stick with gardening for now, and then we'll mix it up. But listen, trees are powerful metaphors, and same challenge I'll make to you today from yesterday. When you're out being safe, distant from people, but if you get outside, you're walking around, if you can see them from your home, I really want you to notice trees and pay attention to trees. Maybe think about something different when you look at trees because so much powerful metaphor in them. For one thing, I love that giant trees, I mean, they're really the largest living organisms on Earth, at least the tallest trees like sequoias are, and they come from tiny, tiny little seeds. Couple years ago at New Break OB, we kicked off the year by handed out little seeds to sequoia trees to everybody and just said, don't forget, God can bring huge, beautiful things out of tiny, tiny beginnings. And so I love that idea still. So just think about the beginnings that these giant trees came from. The other thing, of course, with trees is roots. Two things about their roots. Sometimes, most of the time for trees, the roots are incredibly deep. The deepest roots of any kind of tree is the American elm. I had to look that up. I'm not that smart. But the deepest roots is the wild fig in South Africa. They've found their roots digging as deep as 400 feet. But roots can go deep. They cause lots of problems with pipes and all that stuff. But, especially in a time like this, I think about, man, God, I really hope my faith has some deep roots to it. That when something like this hits, my faith doesn't just get blown over. I've even thought that about our church. Obviously, we face a lot of challenges now. For now, not getting to do church the way that we did, and I get worried, right? Like, what's going to happen? Like, the stuff that we've done, does it just kind of go away? And I feel like God reminds me, no, Carter, your church has deep roots. And that means you guys, that we do, not the organization, the people. We have deep roots in each other and in our faith. And so these huge storms like this come, but we don't get blown over easily. We got the roots to hold us together. Great Bible passage. You're looking for something to read. Read Psalm 1. Very first Psalm. I love that one. It's short, it's great. And he says, here's what a person who's living life God's way looks like. Looks like a tree. Like a tree planted by streams of water who never withers. And so especially in this time, are you planting yourself by something that can give you streams of life-giving water? Are you rooting yourself in God and in faith? And then when times get really good, and listen, they will again, that's time that we can also work on making our roots really deep. So then we're ready for stuff like this. Here's the other thing with roots that I actually mentioned a couple weeks ago in a Sunday message is actually with the sequoias that I mentioned earlier, and I still really want a road trip to go see them in Northern California. Haven't been there yet. All my vacations are postponed right now. But anyway, I hope to be up there someday. Their roots are not incredibly deep. Isn't that crazy? Tallest trees in the world. So how do they not just blow over in all the wind and storms? It's because their roots are actually super interconnected. And so, since they're interconnected, you'll actually never see a sequoia tree growing alone, solo. How many of us are trying to do life just solo and alone? Their roots are super interconnected, and so that's the reminder of that for us. How do we stay really interconnected, intertwined? We talked in that message about being interdependent. Not settling for independency or codependency, but being very interdependent. Other thing about trees, they can always reproduce, right? I mean, things, fruit or acorns and things can fall off of trees, fall into the ground, grow a new tree. That means really inside of each little seed is not only the potential for an entire tree, but the potential of an entire forest. And the same is true of every Christ follower, that there's the potential of many more. As you and I invest in other people, we can reproduce our faith, reproduce ourselves and others. One last thing about trees, it's that they're very life-giving, right? I mean, that's ultimately what we love about them. They give oxygen. We can't really see it, but we get to benefit from it. They give shade. Many of them give fruit. They even sacrifice and give us wood, right? Paper and all those things. And so trees are so life-giving, and that's one of my favorite metaphors in the Bible about trees. A couple more places you could go read. Ezekiel 47 is his vision of a tree, and it lines up with the vision we get of really the end times of life in heaven from Revelation 22, the very end of the Bible. So go try reading either one of those, and you'll see the same vision of a tree that's growing, and it has life-giving fruit that never goes out of season. It has leaves that are used for healing. And man, what a beautiful picture. That's what we're called to be. We talk about that a lot at New Break OB, that we're called to, to be the church, be a blessing. And that's why I have that picture of that tree on my phone that reminds me, we're meant to provide shade for our entire town, for people that are hurting. We're meant to provide fruit and healing and life-giving kinds of things. And so I love that picture of what trees are meant to be and what God can do through us, our many branches. And we started as something small. And so just think about the power of that and how God wants to use you to bring oxygen, bring shade, bring fruit and life-giving to other people. Maybe you read that book, The Giving Tree, as a kid. And it's kind of a depressing book. I don't know why we read it to kids. It's kind of sad. But for most of it, it is a beautiful picture of a tree that's so self-sacrificial. It just keeps giving and giving even to generations. And I don't know a better description of the life of following Jesus, as being self-sacrificial and giving. But if we're planted near streams of water, God makes sure we're always growing. So my challenge for you today, what are you doing to deepen your roots, to plant yourself near some life-giving streams? How are you getting connected to God, to His wood, to His word and His word? I guess I use a pun there. How are you providing shade and fruit for other people? And really, what's falling from your tree that's going to reproduce? Are you planting? Are acorns falling and they're full of fear and anxiety? Are they full of hope and faith? And we get to plant those and reproduce that in other people. If you want to read more about trees, I'll recommend a book that I've never read, but it was recommended to me. It's called Reforesting Faith. And as I read about it, it looks like it goes super in depth into trees throughout the Bible, so you could read more. Here's the last thing about trees you got to know when it comes to our faith is that Jesus himself, he hung on a tree. And so trees represent ultimate salvation, ultimate grace, ultimate sacrifice that our God did for you. So don't forget that, all right? They did for you in the times when we feel like, where is he? And, has he abandoned me? No, because his son still hung on that tree for you, and he's still waiting to welcome you into a relationship with him, in this life and in the next. So don't forget that tree on Calvary. Thanks for listening. I hope it was encouraging to you. Stay interconnected, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow. All right. God bless.